Fringe.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to The Fringe. Welcome to our small fringe minority on another Sunday night as we do the Sunday night weekly wrap. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I hope you guys got a lot done, unlike myself, as we roll into this upcoming week. And boy, do we got a lot going on. Jumping into the stream tonight, Suzanne, how you doing? Good evening to you as well. Welcome. I hope you had a great weekend, and thank you for joining us live tonight on the weekly wrap. Boy, there's a lot to talk about. I've been busy. I've been pre-recording some videos for this week because I've got none other than my good friend Tamara Leach coming to visit this week. And unfortunately, I can't roll out all this equipment while she's here every day and do videos. So I've got a few lined up for this week that I've done. And I'm also, part of the reason she's coming this week, I'm headed out to a media event in Edmonton this week. I'll be hanging out in Edmonton Friday night for a media event, kind of a I don't really want to call it more like a gathering of different media outlets to discuss interviews and kind of get your name out there and rub elbows with some people that are up on the both journalistic and independent journalistic scale. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun little event. So I'll be going to that with Tamara and my wife and my family this weekend. During this week. So I had to pre-record some videos, and I wanted to get into a few things that are coming up that I kind of thought were important to talk about, and things that we kind of talked about a little bit last week. If you were here when I did my interview with the legendary Theo Fleury and Jamie Soleil, we had a good discussion on all sorts of topics when it came to the Emergency Act inquiry. We talked about politics, but one thing we talked about in general that I kind of wanted to touch base on tonight was the issue that's kind of becoming, I guess, a hot button topic in Calgary. It's kind of weird because a lot of YouTubers are starting to talk about it throughout Canada. A lot of Canadian content YouTubers are starting to talk about this. I know Jasper Sunshine, Mr. Sunshine Baby. If you're not a follower of his channel yet, go check him out. He's been talking about this a little bit. And a few other creators have been addressing this, and I think it's important we talk about it because we kind of got into it with Theo, and that is we didn't really get into the drag story hour stuff that's going on or being protested, but we talked a little bit about human trafficking and grooming of children, and there's going to be a little bit of content about that this week. And I kind of figured we'd start the stream off talking about why I'm addressing this and why I think this is a big problem. I've had a few people comment this weekend that I've hit the block button on Twitter, and I don't know what's protocol for you guys on Twitter. Like I've been told, don't ever hit the block button, don't block people. I had somebody reach out to me on Twitter who said some nasty things about my family. And normally I don't hit the block button, but I just kind of thought, hey, that's crossing a line. You know, you want to talk mean about me, I don't care. Somebody said something nasty about my family, so I hit the block button. And one of my friends who follows me says, "Oh, somebody's posting that they're blocked." And I said, "Look, if you're going to get blocked by me on Twitter, you've really got to push." And I think for myself, it was just they crossed a line by bringing my family into it, and I just kind of said, you know what? I can hit the mute button. I know that if you mute, you can't see what people are saying, and that's normally what people do on Twitter. I just kind of feel like that's like stepping over the line, and that's kind of like where I have to make a call, because it's not just because I don't want to see it. I don't think people who follow me on Twitter deserve to see that stuff or read it. Maybe I'm wrong. There you go. I only block people that put me on lists. Welcome to the stream, Mike. How you doing? I've had to block people on Twitter. So I've been told in the space that I work in and what I do, because I'm on YouTube, because I'm in the public realm with my work, that I shouldn't be blocking people that and I see it. Like if for example, like if I go look at Jordan Peterson's Twitter or Elon Musk's or any of those guys, now I am nowhere on the same level as those guys. But when I look at their tweets, I mean, they're full of, I mean, anytime a politician posts, full of negative tweets and negative things and all sorts of nasty stuff. And I understand that when they've got 40, 50,000, 200,000, 300,000 followers, you can't go through them all and you can't weed out every little thing that's being done. But from time to time, I do see that someone's comment was removed by the original post, or was handled, and I just kind of felt like, I got to draw the line somewhere, because again, it's not just me who's reading these tweets; it's people who follow me, even if I put them on mute. So I don't know. I don't know what the protocol is for Twitter. I don't know what people recommend for Twitter. I mostly just want to be out of the drama, and that's where I choose to stay. I've talked about it on great length of this channel that despite what people think, this is not a drama channel. I don't report on um, other channels and other things like that unless it's necessary. And then when I'm done, I'm done. I don't like to kind of run around in the same circles when it comes to how I report things. I think you guys coming here to watch my stuff deserve a little bit better than that. So I try not to tread the same waters. But as we move into the drag time story hour stuff that's happening in Calgary and why I'm reporting on that and why I think it's a big deal. When we sat down with Theo last week, he talked a lot about child grooming and about what's going on there. And I don't know if you guys have seen the videos online that have been circulating as to some of these events. Now, I'm not saying that the Calgary-based event, they call it Drag Time Story Hour or something like that, and they've said it's just people in drag reading stories to children. Okay, well, I'm going to counteract that because some of the videos online have shown kids practically getting lap dances from men dressed as women in like very revealing burlesque style clothing, while parents are dancing and singing around. And I'm sorry to say it, I think it's a form of child abuse. I don't like, I know if I was a child and let's say I was 8 or 9 years old, my parents wouldn't have taken me to an event that had women in scantily clad clothing and said, "Oh, it's just him being comfortable around sexuality or anything like that." I don't think my parents would have approved of that. And I'm trying to understand this ongoing presence of parents who think it's okay to thrust their children into essentially what I think is grooming. It's it's risky. I have no problem with somebody's sexual orientation, and I've said that multiple times. If my kids came home 10 years from now and told me that they're gay, I'd say I'm happy for it as long as you're sure. Then that's your choice. That you're allowed to be whatever you want to be. But when it comes to exposing children to these events, I think that's where I've got a problem. And if people say, "Well, they're just in a dress. It's just men in dresses reading books to children." Why? Why is it so necessary for that? Why is it so necessary for them to be around children? And why is it so important? I don't see a value to that. If you want to educate your children in your home about sexuality, about the different types of sexuality, I think there's a time and a place for that. And I think that it's mostly reserved for when your kids are older and maybe have questions themselves or need to understand. I think that if you have an environment where you raise your children and you push the narrative that if they ever have questions, they can come and talk to you without judgment, then I would feel if your children ever had those questions, they would come to their parents and ask. But I don't know. There's something about going out of my way to take my children to expose them to something that would probably have them come home with more questions than answers that comes across to me as child grooming. And the statistics in Alberta for child endangerment and sex trafficking and human trafficking have increased over the years. And I've got a video this week on that, and it's going to discuss the statistics. It's going to talk a lot about what's going on because right now Calgary Mayor Jody Gondek is petitioning to put forward like she's currently using a bylaw that was brought in as an emergency. I guess they called it an emergency bylaw during the COVID lockdowns, and it was to prevent people from gathering in large groups and protesting during the COVID shutdown. Well, now that that bylaw can't be handled in a court, they're talking about voting this Tuesday on a new bylaw that puts a 100-foot barrier around city properties such as pools, libraries, recreation centers. And if you're caught protesting anywhere within those boundaries, it's a $10,000 fine and up to 1 month in jail. And it's crazy. It's let me get into the let's get into the chat for a second here. Sevro's jumping in. How you doing, Sevro? Welcome in. We kind of got into this topic early. We got Tempest jumping in. How you doing, Tempest? Welcome into the stream. Suzanne, it's blatant child abuse. Yeah, I think so. I left Twitter about 4 years ago. People were so rude, and I was awake back then, and they laughed when I was telling them, and now has come true. Wonder if they missed my tweets. Well, Spider, welcome into the stream. It's good to see. So it's actually good to see some new faces in here tonight. And Suzanne saying that's why she ended Facebook. I haven't been on Facebook in about 9 months. I occasionally go on there. I keep in touch with people I grew up with around Winnipeg on there. So it's mostly to keep in touch with old friends and post some family pictures. My Facebook is very private, and that's about all I use it for. Prairie Strong jumping in. The evil leftist witch. I believe the Chinese helped elect her along with the Sohi in Edmonton. Yeah, I think so. And Theo talked about that as well when we had our interview last week. And I agree. I think that's the biggest problem in this town is that because a lot of people can't wrap their heads around. We had Nenshi, or as I called him, Nenshit. Every time I had to go to the bathroom when he was in office, I'd always say, I'm going to go take a Nenshit. So we had Nenshit and then her, which were both liberal acting mayors. Now, I know that mayors don't really identify with a political class or a political party, but very left views coming from both those representatives. And I look at it going in a city like Calgary, that's as conservative as it gets sometimes. How do we keep getting these liberal style mayors? But the biggest problem is this bylaw. So one thing that we're going to discuss in this video this week is the bylaw saying that, well, the bylaw is only there to protect certain protests. It doesn't outline which kind of protests, which if you're going to have a bylaw that says, hey, you're not allowed to protest at these city buildings, shouldn't that apply to every protest and not just the ones that the city approves or disapproves of? I think that's a little biased. The other thing to remember, and the one thing that kind of gets my piss to a boil in this whole situation, is this is a bylaw preventing protest around city buildings that we as citizens pay taxes for. So we're being told, pay your taxes to operate these buildings, but we're going to determine whether or not you're allowed to use your charter of right to a freedom of protest. That is a huge, huge problem in this city. And I just don't know what to do at this point, because I really think that, you know, people have said, question the parents that are taking their kids to these events, expose the parents. I don't know. I'd more question the parents as to why, like why. That's been my question. I've been having people rip my head off all week on Twitter because they're saying, like, there's people that have gone to these events saying, you know, you shouldn't question anything. It's not your children. So, and I said, well, that's part of the problem is you're saying that unless it's my kids, I should just ignore the abuse of others. It's not fair. I don't think any child should be subjected to this kind of culture at such a young age. And that's where I see the problem. I have no issues. And we talked about this last week as well. I have no issues with drag shows. I have no issues with them having their own space. Part of the problem that they want to put this rule around pools is they're saying that a transgender man who identified as a woman exposed himself to some young girls at a public pool in our city. And the police said that they found no evidence of such events. But part of the reason they want to put this 100-foot barrier around the pools is so people can't protest that a grown-ass man who identifies as a woman who could be sick in the head should be allowed to go into a women's change room and change in front of children or grown adults. That could put women potentially at risk of who's to say. Now, I'm not saying that every single transgender person is a sexual predator, but if I wanted to go look at some naked women, what's stopping me from walking into a public pool and saying, I identify as a woman. And then walking into a change room, and if I was sick in the head and there was just myself and one other woman in there, what's to stop me from sexually assaulting that woman? Why should she have to look at, well, I mean, why should anybody have to look at any guy walking around stark naked in a change room? I don't understand why people think this is acceptable, and why people. I've been very vocal to say, if you want to give trans people a change room, a separate change room, they do it for families. They have family change rooms. They have men's, women's, and family change rooms. So they have the 3 change rooms. Build a 4th one. If you want to have one for zimzers and they thems and everything else, have that. And then let them go in at their discretion. But why should the regular public be exposed to having to go into a change room and risk this kind of event happening? It's silly. And now if you protest it, or if you say you're against it, you can be fined $10,000 or spend a month in jail. It's insane. Maxime is totally against all this drag garbage in the bathroom change room laws. And that's great. I think more politicians should speak their mind about this. It's insane what's going on right now. She's anti-oil. Yeah, that's my question as well. Suzanne, thank you for coming in. Give a girls a knife and a chainsaw bob at law. Carol, welcome into the stream. How you doing? It's crazy. The problem, like whenever I've gone to a pool with my kids, all 3 of my children are under the age of 10. And anytime we go as a family, we go into a family change room now, because I don't want to let my 8-year-old daughter go into a women's change room with my wife and risk seeing some guy walking around saying he identifies as a woman with his junk hanging out. I just don't think children should be exposed to that. I think it's a safety risk for women, or vice versa. First off, here's the big question of the day. How many transgender women who are transitioning to men want to change in a men's changing room? I haven't heard anybody saying that. It's always a man wanting to change in a woman's dressing room that I keep hearing about. And again, maybe I'm wrong. I just think that's what I keep hearing. Is I don't hear the other side of the coin. It's just a bunch of guys saying, well, I want to change in a women's dressing room because I identify as a woman. No, you shouldn't. Anytime I take my kids to the mall and they've got to use a bathroom, we go in with them. Or we use a family bathroom. Because the world has just become this crazy place. When I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, it was don't get into cars with strangers and don't take candy from people. You could weed out the people who were out to harm you a little bit easier than today, where it seems like there's all these overly fetish-sized people roaming the world that just have every excuse on the planet that they're allowed to approach your children or talk to your children or endanger your children. And if you do, you're an ist or an ism. It's out of control. And the big question is when do we stop it? When do we put the line in the sand that says, no more? I said it on my interview with Theo and Jamie that I'm all for gay marriage. I'm for gay rights. I'm for all of that stuff. I think if gay people want to get married and be as miserable as the rest of us, join the club. Have at her. You can pay to get divorced too and enjoy all those costs just like everybody else as well. If that's really what you want, have at her. I have no problem walking down the street and seeing a dude in a dress and saying, okay, if that's what he wants. And if my kids ask me, what is that? I just go, I don't know. And we move on. But we don't sit and tell our kids, oh, you have to be so tolerant. And you have to, I'll never tell my son, if a transgender male asks you out, you have to say, okay, or you're phobic. You know, I don't understand why this has become such a thing. And I don't understand why it's so forced. The education system has dumbed us down for a long time, but I would never have taken my kids near these people. Okay, I agree. I totally agree. If they demand to go to the girls' change room, then they need to be vetted. I'm sure their computer's full of underage pics. You know what? That's a great point as well. But even if they were vetted, as a parent, I'm asking anybody who has children or anybody who potentially would want to have children, would you feel comfortable letting your daughter go into a change room at a public pool where there is a man wearing women's clothing, identifying as a female, changing. Whether they have all the bits and pieces or have had them removed, would you want to know that your child was in that change room being exposed to that or at risk of them staring at your children, getting naked and changing? I I would love to see any parent that tells me I'm perfectly fine with that. And if they were to tell you that, maybe they should be investigated. Maybe maybe child services should take a look at that family, because I don't know one person on this planet that if you were to put it to them in that context would say willingly, without fear of judgment, that they feel comfortable with that happening around their children. I just don't see it. I don't see it. Yes, the Minister of Education does need to step up. I'd be standing on guard by the change room if they go in. Okay, yeah, that is one thing. Alex, welcome into the stream. Alex Wood's good friend of the channel. Go check out his YouTube videos; they're great. If a parent dares to go in public and be filmed with their child in the drag show, imagine what these parents do when they're not in front of cameras, alone with their child at home. Yeah, and that is that's a very good point, Alex, and it's very scary. So the video that I've got coming out this week talks about the statistics, and I think one of them, the last report that I have was from 2019 to 2020. And it had said then that child endangerment acts in terms of pedophilia had gone up in Alberta by 63% in a year. That's a lot. And that's just 2019 to 2020. We're in 2023. How much has it gone up now? And that's the problem, is that, again, there should be a line in the sand where we said, like, over the last 20 years, it started with a push to LGB. And I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I think it's great. If you guys want to date each other, if you want to get married, if you want to have a relationship, if you want to adopt children, fine. Nothing is stopping good, mentally stable people from doing that. But when you start going, well, now, okay, now you've done that, so now you have to, abide to this group of people who want these other special rules, and then this other group of people who want other special rules, and this group, and this group, and this group, and this group, and so on. And now it's all snowballed to the point where LGB, I mean, Dave Chappelle said it best, just alphabet people. And I know several people in that LGB community that have hashtagged LGB without the T. They don't want any part of it because it's giving them a bad name. Just like men often say when women are hurt by a man and say all men are pigs, all men are misogynists, all men are abusers. I always say to the guys who are douchebags, stop it. You're making the rest of us look bad. And that's what I see in that community from the LGB side, is that a lot of people are saying, I don't like what's going on either. And I think what we need is more of that community standing up and saying, hell no. My kids often asked, because they hear about it from friends or they hear about it elsewhere. Like when we go to the Calgary Stampede, they're often advertising for Pride. And my kids have ever said, because we go to the Stampede parade every year, and they say, are we going to go to the Pride parade? If it was perfectly normal, absolutely, I would take my kids if that's something they wanted to see. However, I will not, because now you see people in bondage gear, half naked. I think there was a video in Toronto last year of somebody completely naked walking around outside, and people said, oh, they're just expressing themselves. That's called indecent exposure, and you can be arrested for that. Just because you identify with a certain sexuality. Like, I'm a straight man who identifies as what is it, a cisgender male. Does that mean I can walk down the street naked in a parade and not get arrested? I don't think so. I sit there and say, hey, I'm sexually interested in women, so I'm just going to drop my pants and walk down the street with this parade. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Your sexual orientation should not give you permission to put on leather straps and walk down the street with your butt cheeks hanging out. I'm sorry. I agree in the same. Now people want to say, "Hey Derek, you're a bit of a hypocrite because if a woman was doing it." I've said the same thing when I see women walking down the street with their shorts cut so high that half their butt cheeks are hanging out the bottoms, that if they were to bend over, you would see something. And I've said that should not be allowed either. I think that there are places of decency that need to come into play because I certainly don't want to teach my daughter that it's okay to dress like that, even if it was women. I would try to teach my children to have respect for themselves and to say, look, whatever you want to do in the confines of your own home is your business. But when you're out in society, when you're around people, you have to be a decent human being. And we're getting to the point now where people are saying, well, I identify as a unicorn. I identify as a toaster. I identify as, a friggin' World of Warcraft character. I don't care. But you see it everywhere now where it's like, oh, now here's what I identify as. Here's what I identify as. And I'm being told there's like a million different genders now. Guys, it has to stop somewhere. And it has to stop when people start putting their foot down and saying enough. And I think if we got more people from the gay community to come out and speak up against this nonsense, then I think we'd see some pushback. I think we'd see some real pushback. There are certain communities that won't even report child predators to the police as well. I think will cause shame to their community. Absolutely. Oh, hold on. Chat went up there. It falls under exposure to child sexual abuse according to CAS's mandates and required for them to investigate. Exactly. They're required, but they don't. Chippy, welcome into the stream. How you doing, man? Going to Ottawa's next, flying my Luke Trudeau too, since I'm not allowed my flag. That's a good one. Welcome in. I identify as a billionaire. If I don't get my yacht and bikini-clad ballet dancers, I'll be offended and call it a hate crime. I'm right there with you. I've said the same thing. Where's my check? Who's going to give me my check? It's crazy. Sometimes, like even on this channel, you fear persecution for coming out and speaking against this because, again, I posted an article on Twitter that said I don't agree with this shit, and you get skewered by people on the left saying you have no rights talking like that. You're an ist and a ism and you're all these other things. And it's like, no, what happened to having an opinion? Like I just, as a father of 3, I don't want my kids looking at that stuff. I'd have the same argument. Like if my parents walked into the room and caught me watching pornography at a young age, they wouldn't have been like, oh, good for you, son. You're getting sexually oriented. They would have whipped my ass. They totally would have kicked my ass inside out. It's the same. Like my wife, we've talked about it too. She says, okay, so what if you walked in and caught your kids watching gay pornography? I said, I'd be just as upset because I'd be saying, I don't care if that's your preference. You shouldn't be watching that stuff until you're an adult. Those are the rules. I mean, when I was younger, if I wanted booze, I had to find a way to get somebody to boot for my liquor, or I had to fool somebody at a counter to get it. And I often got in trouble when I got caught drinking because there's rules. You have to be over 18 years of age in Alberta to drink. I know it's 19 in some provinces and it's 21 in the US, but here you had to be over 18. In order for me to go into a strip joint and watch a girl take her clothes off, I had to be over the age of 18. Those are the rules. And they're there for a reason. Those rules were put in place that you're too young to take in and understand what is going on in that building. And you cannot partake in that until you are an adult and can make your own bad decisions. That's the way it is. I mean, that's where I don't understand this argument of people saying, well, it's just men in drag reading books to kids. Why? Why do they need to? Why do they need to be around children? That's the question nobody's asking. Why can't they wear regular clothes and go read to the kids and just be drag outside of the library? Right? Like I don't get it. I really don't get it. So anyway, I don't want to keep treading the same topic here. That video will be coming this week. And then tomorrow, I have a great interview coming forward. I had the opportunity to sit down with an Ontario family tonight that their son was ridiculed, threatened, and threatened with expulsion and multiple other things for doing a book report in school. Now he's in the greater North GTA of Toronto, so he's just outside. He's about an hour away from Toronto, but it's considered the GTA. This 13-year-old young boy was told to write or draw the cover of his favorite book. Now, he could have chosen Jules Verne's Journey to the Center of the Earth. He could have chose Roald Dahl's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And what did this young 13-year-old boy choose? How the Prime Minister Stole Freedom. So he drew a book cover of How the Prime Minister Stole Freedom as his favorite book, and I am flattered. I am very flattered. He was reprimanded. He was taken to the principal's office. His parents were called. He was threatened and told that this could cost him his job, his bank account when he's older. He could be in real serious trouble if he were to do these things in a public setting as an older adult, and was asked to redraw his book cover. So he drew a second cover of How the Prime Minister Stole Freedom and got in even more trouble. They let it slide, but they weren't impressed. So it's a really cool interview. I'm really looking forward to that video tomorrow. Keep your eyes open for it, folks. It'll drop at 6 a.m. Pacific time. So that's 8 o'clock Central, I believe, tomorrow morning. There's Megan. Welcome into the stream. That kid deserves an A. I wished he got one. You know what's great is that after talking to this family, the mother of this family was also a former paramedic with the city of Toronto, who lost her job because she questioned the vaccine. It wasn't even a refusal. She questioned the vaccine and was let go from her job. She went to the Freedom Convoy. Her husband operates gravel trucks, so they drove their gravel truck into the convoy during the Freedom Convoy last year. And after seeing how good it was, they decided to take their children as well, because they weren't there for freedom. They were there to overthrow the government, at least according to Justin Trudeau. That's what they were doing there. But it was great to sit down and talk with them. This brave 13-year-old who stood his ground despite the negative backlash from his school. His name's Liam. I was so grateful to sit down and talk with him, and I will be setting him up with copies of my entire published works, all signed, and some clothes. I'm going to send him some t-shirts as well, some Unacceptable Fringe shirts, so that he can proudly wear them to his school and shove it in his teachers' faces. I think it's fantastic. I think he is a trooper for what he did. And yeah, it was great. It was really great to sit down and talk with them, and very humbling for a 13-year-old boy that no matter how much he was told you shouldn't support this book, he stood behind our work. And again, I've said often that, we didn't write the book for kids. People have read them to their kids. I've got no problem with people reading them to their kids, but they were not designed for children. It's crazy. How about them US bank collapses? Did you see it having a ripple effect here? Do I see it having a ripple effect? I think, look, the US dollar affects the Canadian dollar a lot. The Canadian dollar's hit an all-time low, I believe it was last week. So yeah, we're going to see the ripple here. I think anybody who's got money this year, who has any savings, don't spend them, because I think we're going to need them. There's going to be, my good friend Clyde over at Clyde Do Something has talked about it very often, that there is going to be a breaking point in the real estate market where all these people sitting on expensive houses, they're suddenly going to crash. It's going to be similar to the 2008 situation in the United States. I'm a guy who tends to look at patterns. I just seen FJT stepping into the stream here, who mentioned, What's up, arcade dude? How you doing, FJT? And I'm bringing that up because speaking of arcades, somebody who grew up playing video games and trying to get better at video games, I tend to look at a lot of patterns. And when I watch patterns, it was funny because when my wife was in the oil and gas industry pre Justin Trudeau, I used to say to her when we were saving up to buy this house, she said, "When's the right time?" And I said, "Well, oil and gas tends to fluctuate, but it tends to go on a 5 to 7 year high and then it dips. And that's usually around the time that she would get laid off, where she'd be at home for 5 or 6 months and then go back to work. And things would start to creep up again. So I said, based on that fluctuation, we're due to probably buy somewhere around 2014, 2015. Sure enough, we bought our house in 2015. And the week after we purchased this house, my wife was let go from her job. And it was, Justin Trudeau had come into power. He dismantled the oil industry, but we were due for that 7 year dip. And it was funny because at the time, she didn't look at the fact that it was Justin Trudeau, but she came home and said, "How did you know?" And I said, "I'm not an expert, but I'm looking at patterns. It's the typical pattern." And when you look at what's going on in Canada right now in comparison to what happened in the US in 2008, I think we're due for a terrible rude awakening when it comes to the money printing that's been going on, the spending from the government mixed in with high interest rates and a low GDP. I think we're in trouble. It's it's going to be a scary time this year. I think people are in for a wild ride. The Canadian dollar should be higher than the US dollar. Yes, Canada powers the USA with nuclear and hydroelectric power. So I agree with that, but it's so when our dollar went to hell was when Donald Trump was in office because he raised the value of the American dollar by so much. Uh, Doing all those nasty things that the Democrats talk about. He created jobs and he strengthened their economy, so that naturally their dollar went up in value. And that's when Canada's dollar took a dip because we dismantled our oil industry. We took out one of our leading exports. We started putting rules on farmers and we started saying, we're going to start charging taxes on everything from gas to heating your homes to all these other things. And our value of our dollar just completely dripped. We stopped supplying natural gas to countries that needed it and blowing our economy out of the water. So I think that what we're going to see when people talk about Loblaws and people talk about, Jagmeet questioning Galen Weston last week. Loblaws isn't, they're part of the problem. They're not the full portion of the problem. The big problem, when you look at the cost of food, I keep seeing these reports that say the cost of food over the last year has gone up by 5%. If it was only 5%, people would be fine right now. And it's not. And I'll give you an example. I used to go pick up, I'm a big diet soda drinker when it comes to anytime I intake diet or soda on general. I can't drink regular soda anymore because I went on keto a few years ago and I got used to diet soda. So now when I drink regular Mountain Dew, it's got this bitter taste to it that I have to drink Mountain Dew Zero Sugar or Diet Mountain Dew, whatever people call it. So I used to go buy, especially during the lockdowns, there was a shortage because of aluminum. There was a shortage of cans. So anytime I saw cans, I'd buy like 12 cases of Diet Mountain Dew and put it in the garage and just kind of pace myself through it. Stockpile, so to speak. But at that time at my local Walmart, you could pick up 12 cans for $3 something. It was like $3.99 or 2 for $7. Now they're 2 for $12, which means they've almost doubled in price in the last year. So those have doubled in price. When you look at chicken, when you look at meat in general, any kind of beef, hamburger has gone up. It's not 5%. And when they talk 5%, like our grocery bill has almost doubled in the last year. We used to be, now if I've got a family of 5 and if we do what I call smart shopping, where we say, okay, the kids are fussy. So one night we'll eat craft dinner. One night we'll have, Costco pizza. One night we'll do this, we'll do that. If we balance out meals per night, we could usually get away with grocery bill running somewhere around $150 a week for the 5 of us. And that's if we were very smart about no frivolous spending, only what we needed kind of thing. If it was a bad week and we said, well, we got a huge electric bill, we could get away with $150. I'm lucky if I can get a week's worth of groceries now for less than $300 with the same stuff. Nothing different. It's the same stuff. Like, I'm not eating like a king over here. I know I look like it. I know when you see this fine puckish exterior, you say, God, that guy must eat like like everything. No, we're pretty tame on our grocery bill. My neighbors are trying to sell their house for 6 months without a stitch of interest. The former owner had it listed for only 2 weeks, a completely different market now. And that's funny because it's the same in Calgary. They project that houses are worth so much. I always throw that out the window. A house is worth what someone's willing to pay for it. And you don't know until you put it on the market. Grocery prices are crazy. Indeed, they are. They're way crazy. China takes our coal daily. Ports are full of China ships. Absolutely. I eat extra grapes and eat potato chips at the grocery store. Screw price catchers. Oh, that's smart. That's a smart way of doing it. Grapes was insane. My daughter loves them, and I went to Costco today to pick some up for her lunch for school for the week. And it's like buying gold. It's like, you better make sure you eat these and they don't go bad because I don't want to wait. I'm starting to sound like Terry Crews when Everybody Hates Chris was on the air. The dad who was always, oh, that's 39 cents a waste in the trash. Because food's just ridiculous. I went to Costco, walked out $600 poor. Well, okay, but the question is, how long does that $600 last you, though? If I go to Costco and spend $600, I can probably get away with a month, depending on what I'm buying. Again, it's all depending on what you're buying, right? If I buy like a big thing of hamburger meat, go home, portion it out in freezer bags, and say we cook hamburger meat once a week, then we buy frozen pizzas, and 4 come in a box. We make 2 pizzas each week that lasts us 2 weeks, right? So it's all about portioning, I think, and how big your family is and what you can do to survive. I've cut to basic and what's on sale. Absolutely. Companies have had expenditures that have risen. Payroll tax has gone up, salaries, minimum wage going up, their costs to distributors. Yes, absolutely. Did you stock up on paper towel? Let's create a paper chip. No, let's not do that again. I don't want to have to be running for paper towels and toilet paper again. Jeez Louise. Come on. What? $9 for a pound of butter in Northwest BC? That's crazy. I think like if I go to Costco, I can get a cube brick, which I'm assuming is about a pound, for $6, somewhere in there, $4 to $6. But that's Costco. If I go to like Walmart Superstore, which is Loblaws, any of that, it's probably closer to your $9. So I've got to go to multiple places when I buy my groceries. My grocery trips last like 2 to 2.5 hours. The groceries have almost doubled in Ontario. It's getting harder, but I'm stocking food for the biggest surprise coming along. All in sealed containers for later. That's smart as well. If you can get it cheaper now and stock up, that's always a good way to do it. I know a lot of people that do it that way, and they don't feel the brunt of it as much. So here we go. Save On. I avoid Save On like the plague. And Co-op as well. I avoid Co-op as well. I find you get the same things at their store. Their Co-op has really good meat selection. Same with Save On. I find Costco has really good stuff though when it comes to their meat. They have standards when it comes to what they take in product. So I have no issues going to Costco, portioning out meat stuff and freezing it, so long as it's not going to stay frozen for more than a couple of weeks. When you start getting freezer burn stuff, that's nuts, like nasty. It's nuts. But when I go for groceries now, so I'll go to Walmart for like stuff like if I got to get my 2-year-old animal crackers, Oreos, bags of chips, things like that, I'll go to Walmart, and then I'll go to like Superstore / Loblaws to pick up like some dinner stuff, anything that I can't get in bulk at Costco. I'll pick up a few things there. and then I'll head over to Costco and mostly pick up, kids snack stuff for lunches, Ziploc bags, meal stuff I can portion out. And yeah, the bill's quite pricey when I walk out of there. Like I'll walk out of Costco spending $300, $400, but that stuff usually will last me 3 to 4 weeks, so that I'm not coming back for a while. And I'll still have to get groceries weekly, but the groceries I get weekly will be things like milk, bread, stuff that goes bad. Um, while anything that can go in the freezer goes in the freezer. I hate freezer food. I'm like Gordon Ramsay in the sense that I like preparing things fresh the day of, but unfortunately in this economy, you can't be that picky. It just doesn't work. They price jab people. What I mean, check the shelf prices versus sale price. I've caught countless times they raise the price for the lowest price stuff. Yes. I have seen that as well. And rather than drive across town. Yep. I hear you. 2040, it's the apocalypse. You only have one positive choice. What's your choice? Bugs or cannibalism? Oh, that's a loaded question, man. I'd probably just roll over and die. If it was that bad, I'd just be like, just take me. I don't want to live in this world. I noticed that at Save On as well. So what that is called is price fixing, which is illegal. But of course, nobody slaps them with a huge fine, right? Nobody dare go in there to enforce that law. I refuse to buy items that have those tags. So I just stopped shopping there altogether if you have the choice. I know for some people, they say it's in my area, it's all I have. It's again, like the earlier comment, is better than driving across town. You'll probably burn more fuel than you're paying in the food. But if you can avoid those places, I find hit them with your wallet. Say, I'm not going to shop here. If you want to take me for a fool, you don't need my money. I'll go somewhere else. Chippies, I'm living in the bush. There you go. But there it is. Prairie's got it. This is the start of the 15-minute cities. It's that's gonna be the start of the 15-minute cities. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we go into this week, again, I've only got one video every day this week because, again, I had Tamara Leach showing up. She's so rude. She just calls and says, I'm going to come hang out at your house for the week and play guitar and arcade games and go on trips to Edmonton. With her visiting, it's going to be hard for me to make more than the one video per week. I'm trying to change up my thumbnails a bit. I've been told that my thumbnails suck and that I need to change those. So let me know in the comments if you guys are watching the videos this week, if you think the thumbnails look better, if there's anything we can improve on, put it down in the chat because I want to grow this channel. I really want to get people interested on this channel and bring people in. If there's ever criticism, I'm happy to take it. So please feel free to put that anywhere you like, whether that's here or in the comment section. I hope you guys enjoy the videos this week. I really hope you do. That interview tomorrow with the kid who got in trouble is going to be great. Let's see here. They killed a small grocer, which is where I had to shop. Always have. That's terrible. The big box stores always put those guys out, and it sucks. That's crazy. Anyways, folks, I had to make this a shorter stream tonight because, again, I just got so much on the go with this event coming up this week. So I'm probably going to wrap up the stream at this point. Make sure to check out some of the videos we got this week. I hope you guys enjoy them. I hope if there's anything you guys want me to ever cover, always best to @ me on Twitter at unacceptfringe, or you can throw it in the comment section of my YouTube videos. I haven't been in the comments lately commenting, but I've been reading them while I'm on the go. Spring break is approaching for my kids, and I've been running all over the place trying to get things done for them. What people sometimes forget is that I'm a full-time father while my wife is at her job during the week. And I'm the one at home with a 2-year-old running around the house and 2 kids in school full-time. So trying to get to all this stuff while doing that is sometimes a challenge, but I'm trying to find new ways to get through that. And I think the dawn is coming when it comes time to to address my interactive abilities on YouTube and And the Prairie Strong, I'm not on Twitter. That's fine. Feel free to set up any suggestions you want in our comment sections or during these live streams. I'm happy to take any criticism or any suggestions for videos that you guys want me to cover. I try to cover what I think people are going to be interested in hearing, and I've got some good stuff coming this week, so I think it's going to be great. And I hope you guys enjoy that. And again, my apologies for the lack of content this week, as with this event coming up, it's just been crazy between juggling kids and trying to prepare for that, as well as having Tamara here as a house guest all week. I get to play host all week long. So I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you stay warm this week. If you were anywhere west where we got pounded by snow this weekend, I hope you guys have a great week as we get into it, and look after yourselves. I'll catch you on the next one.